Yes, again, my name is Natalie Bojay. If you want to call me anything, you can call me Mrs. M, because my last name is kind of complicated for most people that don't know it. Again, I just want to go over the definition of a genocide. Genocide is whenever a specific group of people are targeted for by a specific group, usually the government or leaders such as Hitler. They are targeted for their ethnicity, religion, or their nationality, and they are subsequently killed by the said group. Let's go ahead and go over what are some of the genocide acts that you are aware of. There's several going on today, and there's tons from the past. So what are some of the genocides that you know about?
Holocaust.
What was that?
The Holocaust.
Holocaust. What else? You read about two of them. The Soviet Union, yeah, that was the famine. Stalin put a famine on the people. How many people did that kill?
7 million.
Killed 7
7 million?
Yeah.
Yeah, 7 million. Alright. So also another one that's not really known about, that we learn about in school, the Native Americans, the indigenous people here in the United States. Over the centuries since we began colonizing this country, there have been countless genocides against those people. Trail of Tears is an example. There is one in California in the early 1800s that was also really important. California just recognized that they actually did something to the tribes there, and that now they're trying to make amends with the tribes. So let's go over some of the questions. What is the historical context in which the genocide happened? So with Rwanda, what was the reasoning? When did it happen? Well, let me rephrase that. Whenever the historical context, what occurred to cause the genocide? What was the big bang that happened that led to the genocide of the Tutsis people? The airplane, yes, exactly. The president was killed, and that caused a big avalanche. With Stalin's famine, what happened with that? What caused that? Who took power for that to be able to happen? The Soviet Union, yes. And who led the Soviet Union at that time? Stalin, yes. All right. With that, and also, where did it happen? Where did the Rwanda massacre happen? Rwanda, yes. What about Stalin's famine? What country did that happen in?
Ukraine.
The Ukraine, yes. All right. What specific ethnic groups were targeted in Rwanda? The Tutsis, yes. And what was their reasoning for targeting them? Anybody know? No? So the reason that the Tutsis were targeted by the Hutus, there was a lot of strife going on in the country at the time. There was a lot of tensions leading up for the last 50 years that led up to the attacks. The government wanted to stop the Tutsis. They were a major majority in the country. They didn't like the fact that they had power. And then the RPF, which was the Tutsis military force, they had been causing all manners of deaths as well. So whenever the president got shot down, the radio stations there and the government started telling them, let's kill them, let's go out, we're gonna get rid of these people, we're taking our country back. Which led to the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people, the displacement of people's homes, people fled to other countries. With Stalin's famine, what kind of groups were targeted there? Anybody know? Farmers, yeah. And there was the farmers and the commoners, so regular, just everyday people like you and me, they were targeted. They were seen as a threat to the communist regime. So Stalin didn't like that. He had other plans in motion to get different types of deals with the West. And so instead of helping his people, he decided to starve them out and take over their lands and use it for his own means. We already went over where the genocides went and why they were executed. But who in Rwanda, what were the groups of people, what were they doing? What were their methods for how they were getting rid of these people? I believe that's on the second page. here in the text. Says right here. So, by the next morning, local militia cells had organized to begin hunting down the country's Tutsis and systematically killing them using mostly machetes. The radio station would call out the locations and the names of local neighbors, and mobs of people would go track those people down. If you've ever seen Hotel Rwanda, there was instances of people hiding in the attics, hiding in the rafters of their homes to keep out from these people. There was a Hutu preacher who hid hundreds of people inside of his church, and up until the very last of the very end of it, he had managed to protect almost all of them until they were finally stormed themselves. So there's a lot of instances of Hutus themselves who try to defend the Tutsis, their neighbors, their friends, their family, and they too were subsequently killed because they weren't standing with the regime. With Stalin, the way that the people that killed them, that was a communist regime. Stalin and his Communist Party, the Soviet Union, those were the ones. It wasn't everyday people, it was soldiers. Same with the Nazis, those were soldiers, specifically the SS soldiers. So, let's go back to the basics. What years did these happen? When did the Rwanda massacre occur? And how long did it last? 1994? How long did it last? How long? The Rwanda massacre only lasted 100 days, and close to 1 million people were killed in 100 days. Yeah. If you think about that, our city in Dallas County has 1.3 million people. If you think of that, in 100 days, the entire city of Dallas was wiped out. It's insane. With Stalin, what happened with Stalin? When did it happen? How long did it last? No? 2 years, yes. 2 years. It was 1932 through 1933. It technically ended whenever the Nazis invaded Russia, or the Soviet Union, whichever way you want to look at it. When the Soviets were invaded, that's whenever the famine stopped. But as we know, nightmares were about to begin all over there. We already know who's responsible of it, so let's just analyze it. How do these different instances fit into the definition of genocide? What are some examples of why they would be considered a genocide? Exactly. I think I wrote something else on that. Specific groups were targeted, and ethnic and community groups. We already know how many people were killed in Rwanda, and we already know how many people were killed in the Ukraine. But let's see. Okay. So, with the responses to the genocide outside of Rwanda and the Ukraine itself, bless you. That was an intense one. What were the world's responses? What was America's response? What was Europe's response to the genocides? Do you know? I know with the Rwanda one, it doesn't really say, but what do you think the responses were to it? No? Try to go to war? Well, just me.
I think with the Rwandan genocide, it was that the NATO and the peace, the army that should provide peace, they were too afraid to intervene because they didn't want to lose any people.
Yeah, and it wasn't actually until the genocide ended where we sent people over without And it was whenever they had all those people fleeing the countries, and those camps were set up to help people. That's whenever we stepped in. And it has been said, I have another document that I printed out for my own use, because I really found it fascinating. But it was said that should have highlighted it. It says, President Bill Clinton himself, whenever Bill Clinton was president whenever this happened, and he even said, he goes, I don't think that we could have ended the violence, but I think we could have cut it down, and I regret it, because they didn't get involved until after it happened. And countless countries said that. France was often blamed as well for not stopping it, because they had forces located in Rwanda, and they did nothing. And matter of fact, they evacuated their own people instead of stepping in to help. Now, my very simple question for you guys is, this is one thing that I thought about myself a lot of times. What can we do as everyday people? What can you do to stop these things from happening in the future?
Start protests.
Protests, yeah. What's another thing that we could do?
Vote.
Vote, yeah. Another thing we could do is step in and help, step up, say no to the violence. You know how we said how we have all these protests for equal rights? We have to do that on a national stage. When we see injustice, we have to step in. One prime example that's always got me, people fight. We get it. I remember in high school, people would stand alone and watch the fights and not break it up. We can't do that, you guys. We have to step in and put a stop to it. That's how we end violence. That's how we end inequality. That's how we stop racism. We step in and we say, no, I do not stand for this. As a country, we do not stand for this. Because everybody, you and you and you, all of us, we are people, and we deserve lives, and we deserve to be happy, and we deserve the chance to make those lives. I just want you guys to know, thank you so much for letting me be here. I know you don't really have a choice. Swat said this is happening, and you'll say, okay, this is happening. But I'm really grateful for y'all being here. I love Miss Watts. She's one of the best teachers I've ever had. Miss Weisman as well, are one of the best teachers I've ever had. And Naaman is great, so thank you guys. And that's it for me. I don't know what else y'all have planned, but again, thank you guys. I'm very, very grateful. And I hope you enjoyed this impromptu history lesson. You're welcome.
Thank you.
I do have one other quick question. As per my professor's instructions, she just wants feedback on